Okay, so we've had a bit of a look at making these kitchen elements, and for that we've been using some families that have been loaded from the library, which are of course called loadable families, and then we've got the kitchen bench, which I showed you you can use model in place to make under the component menu. And that's a good example of a unique element, and most kitchen benches are unique to that particular kitchen layout. So that's a really good example of somewhere of a task where model in place makes a lot of sense. Even though you might have seen, I'll just show you very quickly. There are benches in the library if you go to the casework folder, and then where is it again? Somewhere countertops. There we are. So you've got all these basic kitchen bench families, but I just like to point those out to say, don't bother with them. They create more work for you than just making it with model in place, because if you need to adjust them, it's quite difficult, and it won't always be adjustable to the configuration you want anyway. And they're also a bit daggy. These splashbacks are a bit tacky, and there's some really much better ways of doing splashbacks that most people in design would look at anyway. So I just say avoid those. I wish they'd just take it out of the library actually. So what I want to show you then is how to make your own families using a loadable family. But I also just want to quickly look again at model in place, just to show you something there. So again, if we go down the drop down, model in place, and make sure you realise that you've got a big list of categories there. And I'm going to explain this in a bit more detail later. But for now, you just need to realise there are different categories, and there are similar categories to what we'll look at in a minute with model in play, with loadable families, but they're not exactly the same. And the only one I'm going to really point out there is walls, because sometimes if you need to make an unusually shaped wall, this is the only way to do it. So you need to know that. You can't do this with a family from the library. There are no walls in the library. So, yeah, absolutely, that's right. Yeah, that's it. And that's why you need to know it, because I know these days people want to try out the, organic sort of geometry. And if you've ever wondered, can you do a spline type wall? In other words, not just an arc or a straight line. You can, doing it this way. So you go to extrusion, and then there you can see you've got the spline option, and if you want to do something a bit more organic, then we're going to do something. Yeah, for once I'll do something a bit more interesting, because I normally do the boring straight and simple curves in my own designs, but let's do something else. There we are. So if you need to do something like that, with a spline, if you haven't come across splines before, splines are just a more complex curve than an arc or a circle. And you get these handles you can use to adjust your spline curve. A good thing to know if you haven't seen those before. And then I'm going to draw some lines just to close that off, and then I'll put in the depth, which, now you can see there the depth is 50, but notice that in properties it's starting at 850. So that depth of 50 is measured from there. I want it to start on the ground, so I'm going to make the extrusion start 0, and then you'll see the depth should go to 900. But it's good to just take note of that depth, but you really should be setting the extrusion start and the end most of the time, and that's the main measurement I suppose you want to look at. So 2700, that should be about my ceiling height. I might need to bring it up a bit more, but now I'll finish it. And then this will give you a good idea about the issues with model in place, because I've finished the extrusion, but then to finish that model in place element, which technically is a family, but not a family that most people would think of when they say that term family, I've got to go finish model. Okay, so I've got my organic sort of shape, and if I go and make a camera view of that, you'll see, we can maybe in a shaded view see the geometry, and you can see there, okay, so the ceiling height is, well, that's the floor above actually. This, oh no, sorry, I put a ceiling. No, it was 900. I brought it up to 2700. but it actually should be 3,000 because that's the ceiling height I've got there. Yeah. So there's my sort of organic thing. But then, okay, so I just want to make it clear how you should work with model in place, because I'm not saying you shouldn't be using it. It definitely is a really important tool. So say I wanted to make some more of these sort of organic walls. What a lot of people would do is go back to model in place and repeat that process. But what you really should be doing, if it's something that's meant to be grouped with something you've already made, is select it, go to edit in place, and then you can keep adding more extrusions to that group, essentially. So maybe I'll just make something that is going to go, yeah, let's just project that so it's like it's going through the wall, and that could be interesting. And maybe, yeah, I'll take it past that opening. Is it going to work? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so again, it's going to be a closed shape, and this is, again, it's good to see the limitations of a spline. So splines in Revit do have some issues, and one of them is that you can't easily use trim and a lot of the other editing tools with a spline. That's why I'm being careful there and just trying to get the line to snap to the ends of my spline. I know I can't trim it, and I've got a small pass over here. So I'll pick the lines instead. Okay, so I can trim these lines together, but notice if I try to trim with that spline, it's not going to work. It's a real problem with spline. So I've got to just drag the end of that line back to snap to the end of the spline. And there we are, and then I can still adjust my spline, of course, and make it a little bit more deformed. That's better. There. And I'll make this 3,000 to match, and yeah, maybe I'll just fix that a little bit. Okay, so I've got my basic form, and in the 3D view, we can see all of those things, of course. And now I've just got to put a little opening in there. So for that, again, I'll finish the model just to, again, make the process clear. If I want to add a void, again, I've got to be editing that in place model. So again, instead of going back to model in place, that's what I really just want to emphasise. It's a common issue. People just keep using model in place repeatedly, and they get all these separate elements, which are much harder to work with. So instead of doing that, I'm going to select it and edit in place, and then I can go and add a void, extrusion, and so I say I want to have a door going through there, I can just draw a void, and I'll make it, let's say 2400 or something, and that of course is going to cut my void through the thing I've modelled, the extrusion, but that's only possible because it's all one object. Yes? Yeah. Oh yes, good. It's mostly the category. Yeah, so normally it does. Yeah, that's right, it does actually, yeah. So yeah, it is, there are two things. You've got the category, and it's good to think about this. So the category that you can see there, that you choose from this list, well, you want an AutoCAD. So really, in a way, it's like AutoCAD layers, but they're made for you, and you can't choose your own categories. You are given these categories that you've got to fit within. But otherwise, it is a bit like AutoCAD layers, and when you control the visibility of things, you'll see you get the same list of categories that you can turn on and off. So a bit like AutoCAD layers, but then, as you were suggesting, there are differences in the modelling tools that you get as well. So I'll show you that in a minute. Oh, no, but you... Yep. Oh, a light family. Yeah, lights are quite different. So I will show you that one quickly. So if you use model in place to make a light, it's really difficult, because lights rely on parameters. So that's another thing that is different. So when you make a family file, and I'm going to give you a bit of a demo of this in a second, but I'll just quickly make a new family, and you'll see instead of getting categories, you get templates. But it's an easy way for me to show you the different modelling tools. So I'll show you the light one quickly. I'm not going to make a light, but I'll show you. So I would only ever make a light as a family file. And again, mostly for the parameters, but also you get some things like this. So you've got the light emitter, that's the thing that gives the light. There's no lampshade or anything yet, it's just this object. And you can set options like the distribution and things like that. But then you also get parameters, like you can see here. This is for the angle of the light, this is for the brightness, and those things come from the light template. So that's one example. We'll go into lights later, and I'll show you how to make lights from scratch. It's not that difficult. But the other one I'm going to show you before we go too far with that, so back to new family, is the profile template. So you've got metric profile. In fact, before I show you that one, I better just show you a more standard one. So metric casework or metric generic model, their templates set up to work in a similar way to what you would have done with model in place already. So you've got extrusion, blend, all these modelling tools that you're probably all used to, or you've at least seen before. But a profile family, okay, so if you go and look at metric profile, it's only 2D. So there are no 3D modelling tools for that sort of family, because you don't need them. So they are just for 2D elements. And so again, things like gutter profiles, fascias, railings, lots of things like that use profiles. And they're actually really useful families. Again, I won't show you how to make them right away, but you will see them if you have ever tried to place a gutter on a roof, which we can do here. So there's a gutter. I'll just add it to the roof, and you can do this anytime. The file you've got already has a roof there. So if you look at this gutter, it uses a profile. So it's a 2D shape, so there it is, end gutter, bevel, whatever. And did you ever see the old Alcan trucks that used to come out and extrude the gutters on site? Maybe it's a long time ago. They haven't done it for a while. And actually Alcan doesn't exist anymore. It's Caprail now. But you'd all probably come across Caprail, because when you're doing aluminium things, they're the big manufacturers, and Caprail essentially took over Alcan. Alcan used to be the people that made most of the aluminium things in Australia, and so they again would extrude the gutters on site. And to show you what those profiles look like, right, so they'd have a machine that had a die, basically a shape cut out that looked just like that, and they'd force the aluminium through it to make the gutter in any pattern you wanted. So you can see here, this is a gutter profile, and it's in this file where we've got no 3D modelling tools, it's just got the line tool to draw 2D shapes. So, going back to the example, so again, the thing I made with model in place, you can probably have a go at something like that. You probably have done things like that already, using even just extrusions. I'll go into the other modelling tools later. I just want to, get into the management first before we go too far with the specific modelling steps. So, I've used model in place to make this one-off or unique element. But now I want to make a simple furniture piece. And I'm going to show you two modelling tools here. I'm going to show you extrusion, of course, but I'll show you one other one. And it's going to be something that's used more than once. So I'll just make a simple chair, Ottoman or something. And so for that, I'm going to the File menu, and I'm going to choose New, and then Family. And, now, for furniture, you can obviously use the metric furniture template. But have you come across any other categories that can work well for furniture? There is another one that's used quite a lot for different furniture pieces. And it's this one here, casework. Right, so the furniture template is good for floating furniture. And then the casework template is good for built-in furniture. And would you think you'd need to have much built-in furniture in interiors projects? Yeah, absolutely. It's the number one type of furniture actually that you should be looking at, because you're not going to be paid to design floating furniture very often. It's normally made by furniture makers and you'll just order it. You definitely can choose it from the suppliers, but you won't be designing the chairs and the tables and things like that. Well, tables you can a little bit, but normally again you get them from a supplier. So, of course, there'll be times when you need to make your own furniture, but actually in interiors projects, you'll often use casework more often because you'll be designing all the built-in furniture. And that's the furniture you really get to design and make a bit different. So have a good think about when you need to use casework. Casework's just the American word for joinery, pretty much. So, yeah, so for all your joinery pieces, and sometimes these things are just called joinery, all the built-in furniture can be just called joinery. Yeah, mint furniture, yeah. Now, I'm going to start with furniture because I'm making a chair, an Ottoman, that's going to be floating. And again, just want to make that clear because you will be using casework. Okay, so we've got a new file. And then, so again, I'm going to do a simple sort of Ottoman type shape. And this might give you some ideas about modelling. So, like I said, I'm going to show you two of the modelling tools. You've all done extrusions, I'm sure, but we'll do a bit more of that. And then the other one I'm going to use is Revolve. Depending on how much you've done, I could do blend as well, but I don't know, have you done any of these others apart from extrusion? No. Okay, so I'll just do Revolve. Oh, I don't know, I'm sure you'll follow it if I do blend, but we'll see, because there's the legs that I'm going to do can be done with either tool. You'll see in a minute. So, simple Ottoman with extrusion. I'm going to draw a circle centered on the origin there. That always helps. It's not essential, but it helps. And now, Ottoman sizes. They can vary hugely. I like the really big ones, but I don't want to make this adjustable because don't want to do parameters that much yet. So let's say, what, 600? No, that's way too much. 400 is probably a single one. I can look up the sizes, but we'll just do that, and then we can maybe look at changing it. Okay, so nothing special. A circle with an extrusion, and I'm going to give a start height of, let's say let's just make it round numbers, 100. I think they'd normally be about 120, but let's say 100, and then how high. So again, this can vary hugely. The really nice low flat ones I think are great, but maybe I'll just make this 400 or 450. So you all know, I'm sure, that seats have a bit of a range. There's no specific height for seat height, even though, yeah, there's definitely a range. So I've got a floating cylinder, nothing special. And, oh, now, sorry, I wanted to show you the rounded edges, so I'm going to bring the bottom up as well. So I'm going to select that again, and it's easier then to change the bottom and bring it up. I'm going to make my rounded edges, what, about 30, so let's make this 130. And I'll leave the top where it is, and then loop. So again, nothing that complicated, just a cylinder, made with an extrusion. So now what I want to show you is how we can have rounded edges. And that's something you might have all thought about. How do you then round off these edges or corners so they don't look so blocky? Is that something you've tried to do before or thought about? Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously extrusions will look pretty blocky normally. So if you go to a side view in elevation, then you can make an extrusion. A revolve to follow the extrusion. So with Revolve, I'm going to draw a profile, and so I'll start with the line and just draw from the corner, coming across. Again, I said I'm going to look at 50, so I'll do that. It's big. It's going to be very round, but that's all right. So 50 and then 50 in each direction. That's just a little right angle. That's 50 each way, and then I can draw an arc that connects those two endpoints and make it snap to give me a perfect quadrant. Okay, so that's the rounded shape that I want to add to my corner. And then with a revolve, the other thing you need is an axis. Okay, so the first thing, the profile, that's basically like what you do with an extrusion. And then the axis, you can see there, it was on boundary line when I started drawing my lines, that's the default. And then you just change it to axis line to draw a line through the centre, what you want to revolve around. And that's it. So I'll finish that now. And you'll see, if we go to a shaded view, that is a rounded edge. Yeah, it's great, yeah. And so then, don't worry about the line there, that'll go in a second. And so, I'm going to try and mirror that. It doesn't always work, but I'm going to give it a go. So, with that revolve selected, I'm going to go up here to mirror draw axis and try and find the midpoint on the side of this shape, and no, it's not finding it, unfortunately. I can set up a plane, but, well, it doesn't hurt to have a go at drawing it again as well. So, I'm just going to go back and do create, revolve, and, you know, it's an easy thing to draw and probably good practice just to draw the same thing again. And then the axis again, because I drew this circle on the centre line, it's easy just to draw the axis there by tracing over that reference plane. And finish it, and we've got it top and bottom. But then you can see in 3D, we've still got that hollow centre of the revolve to fill in. Now I know it can be tempting to try and do that with the revolve and add a rectangular piece to the side that would also get revolved around and fill in the centre. But you'll find it's actually easier to just go and add a new extrusion to do the centre. So another extrusion now with a circle that snaps over that, and it'll start at 400 and go to 450. So now that fills in the inside. You can put it on the bottom as well if you want, but you know, no one's going to see it. So you know, you need to think about whether it's worth it. No, I won't show you. If you want to have a go at it, you can, but just remember, if you try to copy this extrusion, you might be tempted to copy it, and it does work if you want to do that, but you'd need to look at using this option to unlock the work plane, and that might make it a bit confusing. So if you do want to try putting in the piece to fill in the bottom, just to give you a tip there, it'll be easier to make a new extrusion than to try and copy the one that's there. I'll come back to the reasons for that. So, yep. Yes. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So the start was 400 and then the end was 450. Yeah. So now I want these things to all look like one element. And so for that you've got the join option. So then I can just choose each of these elements and join them all together. So it reads as one thing. And then I want to put some legs under it. And I want to do some nice tapered circular legs. So you couldn't do them with a revolve. But I'm going to show you with a blend. Yeah, I'll do the blend. So if you think about it, when you see this shape I make, it is definitely possible with a revolve. So we're going to do, if you know what tapered legs look like. We could draw it from the side, but again, it's good to see how you can do it with the blend. So you've got the blend tool there, and So blends are also a bit like extrusions. You start by drawing a shape. So I'm going to draw a circle for my first leg. I'm not going to be too fussy about the position as long as it's roughly right. So maybe that's, 25, that'll do. So that's my first profile. Then I'm going to, up the top, go to Edit Top. And then I'm going to draw, you can see there the first circle's now greyed out. That was the base. And so then I'm going to draw a new circle with the same centre point, but make it a little bit bigger. And then just going to simply set the height to 100, or actually I have to check that, but it's about 100. We'll see in a minute, we can adjust it. So I'll finish that, and that's going to give me a tapering leg where it's blending from the smaller circle to the bigger one. Now, actually, it probably looks alright if it goes inside there, but no, I want to have it so it's looking like it's underneath. So you can then easily go into an elevation. If you want to change the height, you can do that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I've got one leg. Now I can just select it, and I'll go to Mirror Axis. Use one of the reference planes there, and then I'll hold down Control and select the other one, and then again Mirror Axis, and choose the other reference plane. So now we've got 4 legs, and there we are, nice little Ottoman. No, it's just lots of practice. Yeah, but yeah, it is just, you wouldn't believe how many hours I've spent doing this, and then also, reading lots of books on the programs, but most of it is just getting there and doing it. And I've done it the wrong way plenty of times as well, and probably learnt more from doing it the wrong way. And then you realise after you've spent, days doing something that, there's an easier way, that you only realise, after all the pain. So, yeah. But the final thing there, so I've done these objects that are modelled, and then I want to then have materials. And this is where you do need to think about parameters. So for interior design, you don't always need to set lots of complicated parameters for sizes and things like that. You can just model things as you go pretty much. But you do almost always need to set material. And for interior design, that's critical. Luckily for you, material parameters are also the easiest, I think. So I'm selecting, and there's a good chance just to quickly go over selection. Notice, yes, I'm selecting left to right. If I go right to left, it's going to select everything inside my window, but also everything it's touching. But if I go left to right, we get that, notice it's got a continuous border, not a dashed border. So that means it's going to select everything inside the window, but not the things it's just touching. So I've selected all the fabric parts essentially. And then good chance to quickly get into materials because we haven't done much of that yet. So over here I've got the material, it's on by category, and I'm going to hit Browse, and I'll make a fabric material. So how have you been shown to make materials? Oh, so duplicating, yeah. Oh, renaming, yep. Okay, so that's fine. So you're working with the materials that you've got as a starting point. That does work. So yeah, so often there you can rename them or you can duplicate them. If you're doing it that way, just remember when you duplicate here, you have to then go over, and I'll call this fabric. Sorry? That's right, that's the other option, exactly, that's right. Yeah, so they're the two options. So just remember when you're duplicating, then you need to remember to usually duplicate the appearance as well. So make sure you right-click on the Appearance tab and choose Duplicate, or click on this button over here to duplicate. That does the same thing. The reason is it'll be shared, and we'll get more into this later, but that's something you've got to think about. Yeah, it's the most confusing thing with materials at first. But if you use the other method, then you don't need to do that. So if you go down here to create new material, it makes a brand new material that isn't linked to any others. So here you've got default new material, and then I can just rename that, and I'll call this timber legs. Yep, that'll do. Okay, so notice with this one, it's not shared. You can tell because there's a 0 there. So I don't need to duplicate the appearance here. But, you know, both methods have their place. So if you want to know definitely both ways of doing it.
And so once you've created that timber legs,
Yep.
you then go into colour.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You can change all the settings.
And how do you bring in, so in that image area, we want to just say create a velvet.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do now.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll go back to the fabric material. So it's set up, and then I can change it. So often you begin with the rendering, and that's the appearance tab. And to get the render library, or the appearance library, you right click on that tab and go to replace, or you click on this button here to replace the asset. So then I'm going to just expand this so that you can see all the folders, and it's easier to remember because you're changing the appearance, so go to the appearance library. Don't worry about physical. Yeah, you just double click to open it. Yep. So forget the physical and all these other folders you've got. All you need is the appearance library. Then there's fabric, and we've got a lot of good default fabric materials. So you're saying velvet, so let's have a look at the velvet red, or yeah, that'll do. So if you double click, that takes it from this library, the asset browser it's called, but it's really the appearance library, and puts it into your appearance tab. Then you can make changes. You can't make changes here, but once you've double clicked on it, it goes into the appearance tab, and then you can adjust it. Oh no, you can. That comes with the program. That's built in. Yep, that's what I get to. So so then if you want a different image for your fabric, you can see there this is a PNG file. That's just like a JPEG, and it looks like. Well, I'll show you what it looks like. Right, so that's what it looks like, and it's a bit dark actually. The JPEG one's a bit lighter. That's a bit odd. Okay, so it'll do the job, but maybe if I want to change to the other version, this is the JPEG version, which is a little bit lighter, I think. Yeah, definitely lighter. You can do that. And you can, of course, choose any other image file, so you can choose something completely different. Well, so you could choose the stripes or whatever. And you can download your own image files, of course, and use those. But I do want the velvet, so I'm going to go back to that. And we'll spend a lot of time on materials. There's a huge number of settings you can change. I was quickly looking at the bump map there because that's using a different image, but I'm happy with that. That's fine. So that gives it a bit of depth. So it's actually going to have a 3D, change in height when you see it rendered.
Is it like more texture for the...
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, but say, if you look at this wall here, you can see the brick coming through the plaster or the render. So that can be done with a bump map, so you don't have to model.
And then, you can change it so you don't sort of really change it.
That's right, then you take the bump map off.
So like how thin or how thick the material?
Pretty much, yeah, that's right, it's depth. Yeah, exactly, that's right. And so you can see here this black and white pattern, where it's black, it's low, and where it's white, it's high, and grey's in between. Yeah, so then, if we go back to the graphics tab, you can change these settings, but I'm not going to because we don't need the surface pattern. It's fabric and we don't want to see anything on the surface really, except when we render it. And the cut pattern isn't relevant at all here because furniture won't show as being cut. And that's why you use the furniture template sometimes. So it's worth checking the graphics tab, but in this case, I'm not going to make any changes except the colour. So again, normally surface pattern and cut pattern are the things you think about, but here it's just the shading option where I'm going to tick, use render appearance, and it'll get the colour from the appearance tab. But then I'll turn that off because I want to just make that colour be a bit lighter. It's better. So that's the process. So I've got my fabric material, and that now is going to go onto the object, and why has it disappeared? Okay, that's a bit weird. So let's just try that again. This is a bit of a bug. Yeah, there's a bit of a bug with materials. When you assign it the first time, it seems to not go in with solid sometimes.
Yeah.
But don't worry, just keep going, because when you go back and do it again, the material was saved, so it's there, I didn't lose that, and you just need to do it again. And then it will go on. So don't panic when you see it not work the first go. And then I want to do the same with the legs, pretty much. So I'm going to select the legs. This time I'll go with a crossing window, so right to left. And that way I can just touch them to select them. And I'll go to my timber leg material I've already made. But then I'm going to set it up as well. So back to the appearance tab, go to replace, go to the appearance library, and there's a wood folder. We've got all this solid wood. And yeah, virtual blue. Yeah, and there we are. So it's pretty much like a pine, but a little bit nicer. And it's got a stain. You can turn that off if you want it to be not so orange. But here it's not too bad. I might just make it a little bit less saturated. And so if you haven't done saturation before, saturation is just the amount of grey essentially. And I'm happy with everything else. And back to the graphics tab again. I'm just going to use render appearance to get that colour to come from the appearance tab. It's pretty clever actually. It averages the colour if it's coming from an image to give you that single colour there. And again, I can adjust it if I turn that option off, but I'm happy with the colour, so I'll click OK. And there we go. See, it's done the same thing again. The material hasn't gone on, but don't worry, do it a second time and it will. I didn't lose the material, so that's fine. And there we are. So in shaded, we get the colour, but then if we go to realistic, we can see the texture. So I'm going to save that, and I'll save it so you can get to it. If you do happen to need an Ottoman, then I'll save it into the folder on the P drive, into furniture, and we'll call this Ottoman small, I suppose. And right, so I'm going to load that into the project. Just so you can see how to work without any parameters. Because remember I said I'm going to do parameters. So furniture shops, you'll often have a few different instances of a single furniture piece. Yes? Exactly, that's right, yeah. So that's why I saved the file. Yeah, yeah. Exactly. That means you can use it in any project. But there's a good trick. Once you've loaded it into a project, and then you save the project, it's also saved there. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but say you take that. That's right. But say you take that project file somewhere else. You've got the family file with it. So then you can always save the family from the project file to put it in a library if you go somewhere else. Yeah, so that, yeah. So I've got the Ottomans there, but at the moment, they're all the same material. So what if I want Ottomans with different materials? Right? And that'd be a nice thing. In a furniture shop, we'd want to have a few different materials for these. They would look, a lot nicer. So, we can even get a bit of a pattern. So I'll just do one more copy. Right, so we want to have a nice little display with a few different materials. Okay, so I'm going to select one of them, and I only need to select one, And then if I go to Edit Family, I can make some changes that are going to affect all of them. So Edit Family takes me back to the file. Then I'm going to select the fabric part again, and this time I'll also add a parameter. So the material is like a default material that'll have, the family's going to have when you first load it. But so that I can adjust it, I'm going to click on this button here to the right of where you set the material, that greyed out button, or a grey button. That is what you use to add a parameter.
So that's just changing one in the family or
Yep.
all?
It'll change all of them. Yeah, yeah. So now I'm going to click New Parameter down the bottom. And parameters are easy. When you see them like this, they're easy. Don't worry if you've heard of programming, you'd know parameters come from there. But this is, it's like visual programming, but again, once you understand it, it's fairly easy. So again, New Parameter, and we'll call it Fabric Material. And notice I'm leaving it on type. It could be an option to use instance actually here, but we'll look at that afterwards. So for now, I'll just use the type option, which is the default. We'll see in a minute what that does. And that's it. Like I said, making parameters is easy. That's done. So I'll select the legs. In fact, no, sorry, I don't need to change the legs. So I'm not going to set a parameter for those. Yeah, just so it's clear. So I'll save the Ottoman file. So it's saved to the library. Load it back into the project. And it doesn't matter which option you choose in this case. I'm going to choose the first one. Doesn't make a difference though, in this case. So now if I select the Ottoman, I can go to Edit Type. And what do we have? A parameter that we can use to change our material. And so you'll see this happen when you download families from, say, Revit City, where they've been made by other users. Often they won't have material parameters that you can use to adjust the materials of those things. But then you can easily add your own to any family and make them adjustable. Now, I'm not just going to change it, because if I change this one, they'll all change. So what do you think I need to do if I want to make this version, this one, different to all the others? Yeah, I've gone to Edit Type, and then what you've got to remember is duplicate. So I'm going to call this Ottoman small. Let's make green. I don't do green enough, so get green. So then I can go to my material, browse, and I'll start with this fabric material and I'll duplicate it, and we'll call it fabric. So you can tell, green. Go to the Appearance tab, right click and replace. And I'll start by seeing if I can find a green fabric. So we've got leather, that's green, that's not great. Was there a linen? Oh yeah, yeah, the linen white, yeah, I'll start with that. I can adjust it, so I'll start with that. So I'm going to double click on that. Yeah, so that's my starting point. Unfortunately though, it's not going to do what I want. So it doesn't have the bump map, and it's got a texture. I don't want to go into modifying textures yet, so I'm going to go back to replace and go back to the red one. I'll show you how you can change the red one into a green one. Okay, so I went back to the red. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Sorry, I wanted the other one. That's better. Okay, so I've got this red image that's giving us that red colour. But notice I've also got a bump map. So what that means is that I can leave the bumps there, and that'll give the texture, and change this image. In fact, what I'm going to do is just remove the image. So I'm not trying to give a huge demo on materials, just giving you a bit of a start on it. So I've removed the image altogether. And so now the colour that you can see there is of course coming from this colour setting. And I'm just going to choose a green. Maybe it's a slightly darker sort of lime green. It's not quite lime, but yeah, that's it. There you go. That's still a bit light. So notice how you can still see the bumps there because of the bump map. So that's still going to look like fabric. And then to finish it off, I'll just go back to graphics and tick use render appearance. And so now we've got a green one. And what's another colour? So maybe blue might be good. So here again, edit type, duplicate before you change the material. Again, if I change that material now, it'll change all the other red ones. So I'll duplicate, and this will be Ottoman blue. Now I can change the fabric material, but again, really important that I duplicate that, but because the green one is actually set up more like what I want, so I'll start with that and I'll duplicate it. So fabric blue, and then again, if I go to the appearance tab and make changes without duplicating it, what's going to happen? Notice it's shared. There's a number there that's not 0, so it's going to change the green one. So the basic rule is if you see a number there that isn't 0, duplicate it or replace, but duplicate is fine in this case. So now it's a 0 and I'm safe to make changes, so I'll make it blue, and yeah, darkish sort of blue probably works here. Yeah. That's it. And back to graphics, this is already ticked, so it's picked up the colour there, and there we are. So blue, and so maybe one more just to be sure. So oops, that doesn't want to move, I'll just drag it. Yeah, so maybe we'll do a yellow. So again, edit type, duplicate, and give it another name. And so again, I'll start with one of the previous ones, duplicate it. Appearance, again, duplicate, and get yellow. Done. Oh, actually, sorry. No, that's not going to work here. More of an orange, you know. I'll do a yellowish orange so I don't have to change the name. That'll do. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now if I want a another one of these to be one of those colours, so say if I want this red one to be, let's say green, then all I need to do now is go to my list of types that I've made, and I've got them all there. Right, so I said green, didn't I? Yeah. So that easy. So that's the whole reason again. It's a bit more work to set up the families and set those parameters up, but once you've done that hard work, it's easy then to chop and change and switch these out for different ones, and it works really well. So maybe just to hopefully reinforce that, I'll go and place some new Ottomans now. So again, place component. Oh yes, sure. The only difference is that replace brings up the library, but both of them will replace the appearance. Yeah. The duplicate just keeps the same settings, but it's making a new version of it. Yeah. But yeah, they're both very similar. Yeah, but it's good to think about that. And then, yeah, so now I can choose the blue one, and there we are. Got the yellow one there. Make it a bit more random. There we are. So that easy. So hopefully that will give you some ideas for making your own families, and then again you can also hopefully adjust materials a bit more easily, and then also think about making your own. Lots of other things we can look at there, but yeah, that's probably a good way of starting it. So see if you can come up with your own design for a furniture piece or something else that you need for your space, and make sure you can put your own materials onto it. So I might give you some time to try all those things. There's probably a lot to take in, but it's all recorded, and yeah, just take your time and see, making sure it's all working.